pause. We pause for a second or two. This is episode 188, pausing when traveling. These days, we think of traveling as something straightforward. We have different ways of traveling, different vehicles. We go by car, we go by train, we go by bus, we go by aeroplane. Some of us go by helicopter. And when we travel, in just a few hours, we step into the vehicle, let's say a car or an aeroplane. We step into this means of transportation. And then a few hours later, we step out of the vehicle and we are someplace completely different. With the high speeds of these vehicles, we are able to change our location drastically in a short span of time. Just a few hours and we will find ourselves in a place that emotionally feels very different from the place we came from. Today's episode is called pausing when traveling. And what we do today is that we pause and take a moment to just recognize emotionally, physically, what traveling can be. Because we have these intellectual ideas about what traveling is and is not. But how we feel about traveling, how we feel about changing locations so quickly, that's a different matter. So we have two truths at the same time. We have what we think intellectually about traveling and how we feel about it intuitively. These are two sometimes quite different things. Not always, but sometimes. When we travel, we step into, let's say, our car. We step inside our car, and then we drive for a couple of hours. And then when we get out of the car, many physical things have changed. So once we got into the car, inside the car, the landscape might have been quite lush. maybe in a forest. And our body was used to, acclimated to being in a forest. It feels very specific being in a forest. Our nervous system feels a certain way in a forest. The air is moist and sweet in a very specific way. The sounds, the sort of how our thinking goes once we are in a forest feels a certain way. The ground is soft. Walking in a forest feels very specific. How we place our feet, how we make use of our feet and legs and knees. How we have to be careful how we place our feet, not to step into any ant hills or the like, or trip over some root. And this is just one example with the forest. Could be any place, but just to get a first kind of place for this episode. So we started out in a forest, and then we got inside our car, and then we travel for a few hours, let's say a few hours. And then intellectually, we know that once we step outside of the car, we will be in a new place. We have a name for the new place. Let's say that we go to a city. So we have the name of the city. We know we know what the city is about. We know what people work with. Intellectually, we know a lot about this city. And then we get outside of our car again. So we were in a forest with that sort of feeling in the air, in the ground, how our thinking went, how our bodies reacted to that sort of place. And now, just a few hours later, we get outside our car and we are in the middle of a city. We step outside and we walk on asphalt. It feels a certain way to walk on asphalt. It is hard, unforgiving. We can feel that we must adjust our body in a different way, walking on asphalt compared to walking in a forest. And then the air feels different. The air is not sweet, but quite dry and coarse. There are many different smells also from the forest. It no longer smells sweet and organic. It smells like smog, or like maybe there are smells of food places, restaurants. We smell cigarette smoke, we smell garbage, we smell perfume, we smell all these kind of things. The lights are different. In the forest, they were just the natural light from the sky. But here in the city, there are thousands and thousands of different electric lights. So all of a sudden, our sense of spatial awareness is different. Now there are many thousands of different points of light In the forest it was just the sky. Just one source of light. Or maybe the light was reflected in some lake or something, or a puddle, but nothing more. And the people feel completely different in a city than from a forest. Their nervous systems work differently. Their pace is different. They walk faster. They look at their smartphones. They rush for the tram or the bus. The cars are speeding left and right. We see people feeling unwell, being under the influence. Someone is working on something, maybe a construction worker. So the place we are at now in this city is completely different from the place we were just 2 hours ago. And we pause. And this is emotionally, physically, intuitively, this is very drastic. Intellectually, we just say something like, well, yes, 2 hours ago I was in the forest and now I'm here in this city. But our bodies are not that quick to adjust. Our body, our nervous system, is still to a large degree in the forest. Sort of nervous reactions in our body, our blood flow, our hormones, our sort of different levels, the warmth in our body, our thinking, the sort of thinking patterns. A lot about how we feel is still in the forest. But now we are in a completely different place. And what this means is that our sort of conclusion with today's episode is that every time we travel a large distance in a short period of time, let's say a few hours, like in our example here, we will always, when we do such a transition, we will always be somewhat confused. And we almost always forget about this. That every time that we change place so drastically, like 2 hours, and then we go from, let's say, a forest to a city, we will always be somewhat confused, at least in the beginning, at least for the first hours or so, and maybe even longer than that. Like, the term jet lag is akin to what we're talking about today. Jet lag is this feeling of that it feels kind of surreal or like a dream, or that we cannot emotionally, physically understand how we got here. We're just in a new place and it feels off. We cannot emotionally anchor ourselves in this new place. And that's what pausing when traveling is about. Recognizing that in this new place that I just arrived at, I am confused. That's what we recognize. Just now, this week, was the holidays. And I did some traveling from different family members to other family members and back and forth. And this aspect of traveling, that we always are somewhat confused when we arrive at a new place in a short period of time. This sort of confusion was with me. So when I met with my family member, I could feel this sort of slightly dreamlike sensation, slightly disbelief feeling that, wow, now I am here in this place. Just some hours ago I was in this other place, but now I'm here. And it is so easy to forget that we are spatially more sensitive than we like to think. We get confused when we travel fast. Some people travel great distances every day. They fly here and there. They are in one continent one day and another continent the next day. And doing this, life becomes somewhat confused to such a degree that it might be mistaken for somewhat magical or larger than life. That we step inside of an airplane and we get outside the airplane and we are in a different place. Airplane, another place. Airplane, a third place. And our bodies, our sort of emotions, our souls have a very hard time comprehending this sort of speedy traveling. Emotionally, we are not really built for flying, for example. Flying across the world, we are not really built to understand it on an intuitive level. Intellectually, yes, of course. I know that today I am in Sweden, and in tomorrow I might be in England or America or wherever. Intellectually, it's one thing. But we will always be somewhat confused by the possibilities of traveling. So when we pause, when we travel, what we will feel when we pause mid-traveling is a sense of sometimes confusion, sometimes sort of magical feel, sometimes kind of dreamlike, and sometimes we just feel out of place, and sometimes all of the above. Traveling is emotionally quite drastic, at least when we're traveling in a very fast way. If we are going by bicycle or something like that, or walking or running, that's another thing, because our body has time to adjust to the traveling, because it's going slower. But this speedy traveling by car, train, bus, airplane, helicopter, these are not as straightforward as we like to think. Not emotionally. Intellectually, yes. Emotionally, no. So now the holidays are just about over. Now it will be time to just be at home, be in one place, and allow for my body to just know where it is. And this sense of confusion will slowly dissolve, and it will feel more straightforward, less magical in a good way. That's it for today. Thank you.